Welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good evening, my fellow Michiganders. Good evening, my fellow Americans. Welcome to a special edition of the Grassroots Army Podcast. We are fortunate enough tonight that Speaker-elect Matt Hall is going to be joining us to answer a lot of our questions of all the shenanigans and what I'd like to say hot garbage that the Democrats are pushing through. My goodness gracious, they have doubled down. You know, they didn't learn anything from the election with President Trump or what the people and the majority of people, especially here in the state of Michigan, want. So they literally have doubled down and continue to double down on their extreme progressive agenda through this lame duck against all the expressed wishes of who? We the people. And they don't care about the consequences. And they continue just to do insane, radical things. And they're not going to stop. They're going to continue to hammer down on this stuff. And I'm so glad the Speaker-elect Matt Hall is going to join us here and answer a lot of our questions and kind of describe everything that they're going through and what's on the agenda. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Speaker-elect Matt Hall, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Garrett.
Oh, it is my honor, and thank you for taking time away from your family, especially on a Sunday evening. But I'm so glad that you came on because there's so many questions that people are having right now on what the hell the Democrats are doing this past week.
Yeah, it's been quite a week. I'm proud of our Republican caucus. You know, I know one of the reasons that your Grassroots Army started is because you tapped into a movement of people who wanted to see the Republicans fight for our country, fight for our state, fight for our constitutional rights and our liberties. So, you know, I was proud of our Republican caucus. We'd finally had enough of all the things you described from the Democrats. And this really came to a head over the fact that in February, we're going to see, because of an activist Supreme Court, a 240% increase in wages at restaurants, and the elimination of the tip system, and then a radical paid leave system that's going to have a lot of unintended consequences for earned sick time that the Democrat Supreme Court is forcing on us. This will go into effect in February because of the judicial activism, and Friday represented the last day that we could move something out of the House in order to do something this year. Democrats refused, and so the Republicans walked off the floor and said, we're not, there's nothing here worth doing based on the bills on the agenda today. We're not coming back until these issues are addressed. And I was proud because, this hadn't been something we'd seen in quite a while. And it shows the fight that the House Republicans are going to bring over the next several years in majority.
And that's exactly what has to happen, right? Because we can dig our heels in the sand. I mean, that's what we have to do. And that's why I continue to try to activate people, because so many people say, hey, our savior, President Trump, is elected. We're done. We can pick up our ball and go home. Absolutely not. This is just the beginning. With President Trump's win, especially with the victories that we had up and down the ticket, we have literally, we can stop the bleeding now. But this next decade is going to take a tremendous amount of work. That's what I've been saying, is President Trump has laid the foundation, especially with all of his great cabinet picks that he has instilled. But we have to build the skyscraper one floor at a time over the next decade, at least, especially here in the state of Michigan. And I want to hit on what you just said, especially with these restaurants. I mean, I feel so horrible for these business owners, Speaker-elect, because look what happened to these folks during the pandemic. And we all know that Governor Whitmer was one of the most draconian princesses during the lockdowns and what she did to these small businesses. But she just hammers them again with all the stuff that they're doing to not only the owners, but also now the workers with the taxes on the tips, the paid sick leave. People don't understand. I'm a small business owner. That's going to affect my business. They just continue to dig this hole. And my goodness gracious, you pointed out in the Breitbart article, and a lot of us know that they burnt through a $9 billion surplus.
You're right. And so, the restaurants were the most hard hit industry during the pandemic. And, I chaired the House Oversight Committee at that time and the COVID-19 pandemic oversight committee. And we bring in Whitmer's director, Robert Gordon. And it seemed like this guy thought the only place COVID spread were restaurants. And, you remember all the contact tracing, and every time you had to go in there, they wanted to know, who you were, what your phone number was, just to go into a restaurant. I think they were closed longer than other businesses. It was incredible. Even when they loosened up on everybody else, they were still picking on restaurants. And we saw a high percentage close. Many are still not profitable from that time. And then here comes this minimum wage hike, which is estimated, another 20% might close because of it. And you're going to see prices go up. Some of the estimates I've seen are 25%. So you may spend $20, $25 on a burger. I mean, fewer people are going to go out to eat. Fewer people are going to be able to afford to tip. And this is all to force a minimum wage, a higher minimum wage on restaurant workers who make well above minimum wage now. I mean, we're seeing the average restaurant worker probably makes $25, $30 an hour. This is going to force them to make around $15 an hour. And when you see the effects, they're going to make a lot less money. And that's why thousands of them keep coming up to the Capitol and protesting this decision. But Democrats are turning a blind eye to it.
And it's so frustrating because, people are leaving Michigan, all throughout the pandemic, now through all these radical policies, the indoctrination, obviously, that's been going on in our public school systems, university systems. We can talk about the Chinese battery factory and how we just funnel millions of dollars into corporate America, and now we're the hammer in the restaurants. These people are going to leave the state of Michigan. They're going to leave because it's going to be very expensive to live here. It already is. And then we have neighboring states like Kentucky and everything else that they're going to announce that they're cutting the state income tax. And if we remember, Kentucky and Tennessee was the one we were competing with, I think, with the Ford Motor factory, like $11 billion factory that we lost to them because it's a business-friendly state down there. Right. We're losing all of these jobs. We're losing all this tax revenue. People have to understand when people leave the state, that's tax revenue. And so what they continue to do is spend, raise our taxes. The budget continues to be bloated and it's exploding up. I don't even know how much our budget has increased over the past 8 years, but it's been a lot. They've already burned through the surplus. I mean, what can we do, Speaker-elect? I mean, that's what the question is. We have all these things that they're hammering down with tampons and boys' restrooms. We got electric bikes that they're doing. I mean, all this stuff is insane. It doesn't make any sense. And we can't do anything until basically 2026, right, to change all this stuff?
Well, we did elect a Republican House majority, working together, with a lot of grassroots help and support. And so in January, we'll stop the bleeding. You'll have, this is the first time in 40 years Democrats have controlled all branches of government. That'll end in January with me as Speaker of the House. We're going to stop this and make Gretchen Whitmer a lame duck in her last 2 years. Then we got to build from there. So, we'll be developing the policy out of my office that's going to drive the next Republican governor and legislative majorities and start beginning, to turn around the state. We're going to launch the oversight investigations that are going to bring accountability to government and stop this lawfare in Dana Nessel's office and all this violation of honest election policies in Benson's office. We're also going to start pushing back on the budget and bringing value for your tax dollars again. You mentioned the $9 billion surplus. That's the biggest surplus the state of Michigan ever had. And they wasted it on giving it to electric battery plants, many of which are downsizing already or affiliated with our foreign adversaries. And these stupid pet projects like a hip hop academy in Lansing, a Zen Center for the Novi Public School faculty, whatever that is, boxing rings, splash pads, water parks. It goes on and on and on. They spent billions on that. It's interesting. I was talking to Governor Snyder recently. He told me when he was governor he called it monkey business. So he limited that to 25 million to get certain politicians to support the budget. Under Whitmer, we just averaged it out. It's 500 million every year that Whitmer's been governor that's going to these pet projects for Democrats. And it's 2 billion in one of the most recent budgets. But you think about that difference is incredible from a Republican governor to a Democrat governor. I would just say, though, in the meantime, there is one brave Democrat, Karen Whitsett from Detroit. You might remember her from, during the pandemic, she spoke out and had a lot of positive things to say about Trump. Well, when we walked off, any one Democrat could stop the madness because they would not have a quorum. That's how close the majorities are right now. About 10 p.m., the Democrats were trying to ram through, we call it Friday the 13th, because that's what it was. So, and we'll get into everything they tried to do that day. But they were trying to raise taxes by 400% on your garbage. And Karen Whitsett bravely walked off the floor, and they didn't have the votes. And it ended, and they didn't have the votes to do anything because they didn't have a quorum, and they had to stop. And there were another 30, 40 terrible bills that would destroy people's livelihoods, cost you a lot of money, and really hurt the state. And Karen Whitsett blocked all that. So as we get into these next 2 days, there's 2 days left in the House before the Democrats' majority is ended. I'd say you asked, what can we do? Number one, I think we should be praying for Karen Whitsett to have strength and wisdom, but also, let's call her office and support her and encourage her. Because she has demonstrated she will stand up to the Democrats when they get too far left.
And that's the big thing, right? Because that's being seen all throughout the country right now. Is the old school Democrat Party's dead, right? Mm-hmm. The old JFKs of the world, those are considered moderate Republicans now. Mm-hmm. And these Democrats have to realize that their party's not coming to the middle. They continue to go farther and farther to the left, and the people who have some things called like common sense and logic, just like you mentioned, like they just stand up. The majority of the people in the state of Michigan do not want this stuff. I mean, we continue to get hammered down, and like I've been putting out, don't California or Michigan. And I know you've been standing on your soapbox saying the same thing. The Californification is coming. I mean, it's interesting, too, because we all know what most of the Democrat Party does is they lie, and they continue to lie, and the corporate media runs with that lie, and then their social media minions will gush over the lie until they're called out. And I want to highlight Senator Dana Pohanke because she said, I spent my first 4 years in the Michigan Senate as part of the minority party. The Republican majority at the time kept us in the Capitol after midnight many times, voting on bills that we didn't like. Never, she said, not once did any Democratic senator leave the Senate floor. So I have a video of her leaving the floor. So I want to show this. I want to talk about it.
The Committee on Education and Career Readiness will be called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Lindsay.
Here.
Senator Horn. Senator Runstead.
Here.
Senator Daly.
Here.
Senator Heisinger.
Here.
Senator Blanky.
Here.
Senator Geis.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 6 members present. There's a quorum.
Thank you very much. Our listing member has specifically stated that he is running a little bit late, so he'll be here shortly.
There she goes. I think that's called leaving, wouldn't you say, Speaker-elect Matt Hall?
Yeah. And, in our case, there's nothing to do. There's nothing productive happening. I mean, you look at the bills that they were moving on this Friday, the 13th, in Michigan. One is going to add $20 to $25 billion to the state pension fund. That's going to cost all of us and our kids over many, many years. You mentioned the e-bikes. I mean, allowing the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the company that, the part of government responsible for landing these economic development deals like Goshen, is somehow going to administer an e-bike, government subsidized e-bike program. We can go on and on. I mean, we saw them move legislation that allows you to, it could allow a 14-year-old to change their gender, at the Secretary of State's office without any parental consent or anything, just by going in there and saying, I think I'm a different gender today, or allowing an X if you don't want to pick a gender on your driver's license. So, there were all kinds of things. There wasn't one bill really that we could find that's worth being there. And so we just figured, the people of Michigan need to know this is going on. We could stay here and vote no over and over and over, or we could walk off and make this draw attention to this, so people like you and I can have this conversation, and people can really understand what the Democrats have been doing up there and how they're refusing to act in a moment that's so critical to the restaurant workers across our state and the small businesses across our state. And so that's why we did what we did.
Didn't they also, I was reading the Breitbart article that they blocked your plan to ban sanctuary cities in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, they did. They blocked a lot of our ideas. And they're still trying to ram through next week legislation to give illegal aliens driver's licenses in Michigan. Fortunately, some of these brave Democrats like at least Karen Whitsett is stopping that now. And they're trying to grind her down and beat her up and convince her to do it. So, there are other Democrats that claim they're opposed to that, but every time it goes up on the board, they all vote yes. And the only one who's really shown that she'll fight is Karen Whitsett. And right now she's stopping that and a lot of other really bad ideas that the Democrats have.
Go Karen. And
Yeah.
that's the good Karen that we're rooting for, not the other Karens that we always talk about. I got a question on here by Jeff Jones. He says he's quite concerned about the national popular vote 4156 that effectively eliminates Michigan electoral vote. He wants to know how likely is that bill that it's going to pass?
Yeah, so they put that on the agenda 4 or 5 times already during lame duck. And, I want everyone to know kind of how we decided to start lame duck. Lame duck is the period after the election where the politicians come in, many of which are leaving, and they try to ram through very unpopular policies that we would never try to do before the election. And honestly, I think we probably need to get rid of this period, and we're going to introduce legislation to do that next year. But we started this period with bringing in Pastor Lorenzo Sewell into our caucus and having him pray over us and pray for the Democrats. And you know him. He was attending a lot of Trump events with you and I over the last campaign, and I just felt that we were entering a major battle here. I mean, the end of the Democrat trifecta. This is Gretchen Whitmer's last chance to put a radical left stamp on Michigan before she pursues her national ambitions, because when these last session days are over and next year, we will stop her radical left-wing agenda with the Republican House. So I said, we need to bring in Pastor Sewell because this is a powerful moment. And he's, and God has given us so much strength and also the grassroots behind us. I mean, I walk in there and every Republican in our caucus has a backbone and is ready to fight. And you think, how far have we come that I can say that, right? But we stand unified against national popular vote. Every single Republican in the House is opposed, and they're going to have to do it with all Democrats. And the reason it's been on the agenda 4 or 5 days and it gets pulled is there are at least one Democrat, probably more, that are opposed. And so I think it's unlikely to happen, but they'll keep putting a lot of pressure on.
Is there any Second Amendment stuff that they're trying to push through right now?
There is. Yeah, there's a lot of anti-Second Amendment stuff. And, I'm not up to speed on all of it because the Democrats were moving so much through the Senate. While we were doing everything in the House, the Senate was there till 5 a.m. just sending bills over to us for next week. So there are quite a few anti-Second Amendment policies coming over. I know they want to take away immunity for gun stores and gun manufacturers. So anytime something happens with a firearm, you can sue the gun store that sold it to you or sue the manufacturer. If that kind of legislation passed, that would bankrupt the industry.
That's why they want to do it, right?
Yeah. So there's a number of things along those lines. I know there's legislation to put it in the law to ban guns from the Capitol and our office buildings because the Democrats are afraid that the House might change some of those policies next year. So I know there are a bunch of them, some really bad ones, and our caucus is going to work in a unified manner to do everything we can to stop them.
I wanted to point that out too, is it's so important over these next 2 years that we don't lose this momentum of people being activated. We had such a great voter turnout during the Trump election. Barrett, everyone else that won up and down the ticket. Obviously, we came up a little short in the Senate race with Mike Rogers, but we have so much momentum, and we have to continue to build this momentum. We have to continue to win up and down the ticket because we got to win and get the terrible 3 out of there, obviously. Get the Attorney General spot, the Secretary of State. We need the governors. We need to take back. Obviously, we got the House. Now let's take back the others, the Senate, right? Let's take it all back, and then we can start to do some common sense legislature, some common sense policy, get Michigan, because this, and we believe this, and everybody that lives here, we all know and believe what Michigan can be. It can be the powerhouse of this union. We should be blazing the trail, and other people should be calling us. Other governors should be calling us. Other representatives should be calling our legislatures like, what the hell are you guys doing in Michigan? You're dominating it. That's where we should be. We have so many great things to offer, but obviously these Democrats just continue to hammer down, continue to throw us in the hole, and just push all this stuff through. It just doesn't make any sense. All this through COVID doesn't make any sense, Matt. That's why I'm here right now, right?
Yeah.
Never would have got involved in politics if there would have been some common sense in the beginning, but here we are. What can you say to those folks? Keep them activated, keep them motivated, to keep them fired up for what we need to do in Michigan in 2026.
Well, I think, President Trump, has changed the party, and it's a lot different than it was when he started. And then the pandemic, yourself and many of your people who supported you in your campaign and your podcast and all the things you're doing, a major grassroots effort of people also are behind a lot of these same efforts. And, for us, going through everything we went through the last 4 years, and you look at everything they said, everything they did that made many people doubt that we were the majority, doubt that Trump could win with the lawfare and the censorship and everything the media was doing to him and all of us. And to see that he could break through that and all the cheating that Benson and others were doing, he broke through that, and still we swamped the vote, and we won decisively, winning Michigan and winning every swing state. There are more of us than there are of them. And we have an opportunity now, here at the State House to partner with Trump's administration and do what we can to support his efforts. But, the next time, the traditional historic situation is you win the presidency and then you lose seats in the midterms. If that happens, then Trump won't have the opportunity to really finish the job. And here at the state level, we won't have the opportunity to start reversing a lot of these terrible things Whitmer's done and start making Michigan the great state that it used to be. So, we won in 2024, but in order to turn this into a permanent movement, we have to win in 2026 too. We have to grow President Trump's majorities in Congress, and we have to win the governor, the Senate, and you mentioned Attorney General, Secretary of State here in Michigan. What I'll say to you is, as the leader of that's all we have right now in Michigan is the State House, and I'll be the speaker next year. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put forward with our caucus, policies and oversight hearings and appropriations and budgets that will show the grassroots and the people of Michigan that there's hope coming, right? There is a Republican Party worth fighting for. There are Republican elected officials with a backbone who are committed to our party platform and our conservative principles. And my hope is if we lead that way when we have one branch of government and we fight for real, we fight hard because we've learned the lessons of the past. We've seen the grassroots power if we're true to our platform and we fight for our principles and fight for our state and country. Then I hope we'll encourage and inspire people to stay motivated to do the work and show up. And we're going to have to swamp the vote again in 26. But Republican elected officials have to show the people that there's a reason to come out and vote for us. And so I'm going to lead the House Republicans in a manner where the grassroots will see that.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, that's one of the most powerful things you can give someone is this thing called hope. If you give them hope, and then you take a stand and you follow through with what you said that you were going to do when you were asking those people for those votes, then that's going to bring what's called power. And when you have that power, unbelievable things can happen. See, the Democrats use this thing called force. That's what, if you look back in history, the British Empire in India, what they do to Gandhi, it was force, force, force. Gandhi used power. And that is what's happening. That transition, this Trump Republican Party that's happening, it's the party of power. It's the party of common sense and logic. It's putting America first. We're going to put Michigan first. We're all about America first, obviously, but we want Michigan to be ahead of that, right? We want Michigan to be first in the union. And so when you do that for the folks and you follow through with what you're going to say, they'll go to bat for you. They will go to bat. They will knock doors. They will talk. They will make phone calls. They'll be involved in campaigns. I mean, that's what we have right now is an unbelievable movement of people who are activated and inspired and motivated. It's up to our elected officials to do everything that you just said, is lead, and lead by doing the right thing. I want to hit on just a few more minutes with you, sir. Jocelyn Benson, okay? You mentioned her cheating. My goodness gracious, a Chinese citizen voted in our election here in the state of Michigan. That woman should never hold any office, and I stress the word woman, right? Because hopefully she probably identifies as a woman. That's what they tend to, they get it all confused over there, but I think she still identifies as a woman. She had a Chinese citizen vote in our election, and there's rumors that she wants to run for governor. Now, to me, I'm a little biased. That would disqualify anyone for ever holding any other elected official. But we have Benson, we have Dugan. I mean, who else is on the Democratic side? Do you hear? Buttigieg is another one that I'm hearing. We know Dugan's running as an independent right now. Before we get into Benson, what do you think about that? What do you think about Dugan running as an independent?
Well, I mean, he's been a Democrat his whole life. He comes out of the McNamara machine in Wayne County. McNamara was the county executive in Wayne County. His protege was Jennifer Granholm. She became attorney general, then governor.
The lost decade.
Yeah, Duggan was another one of his key insiders. Now he's running as an independent. So, he's a solid Democrat. I mean, supported every Democrat candidate, supported by unions, supported by, uh, the pro-choice groups, supported by the anti-Second Amendment groups. So you essentially have two Democrats running, Duggan and then Benson.
So
But
Duggan has to think that that's going to hurt the ticket. What's his play? Because if there's a three-way race, I'm assuming that a Republican should win this thing.
yeah, I think the Republican is favored. It's interesting. Duggan running is an interesting kind of situation. In the old Republican Party, the big Detroit CEOs and these big kind of corporate donors would be behind the Republican. In this and in the current situation we're in, we saw this with Tudor Dixon. They all backed Whitmer heavily. Okay, they didn't support Dixon, but these Democrats like Benson are so far left that these corporate people won't support him. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of those big Detroit CEOs are going to support Duggan. And so it'll in the progressive far left will support Benson.
Benson, yeah.
And
Which
then,
hurts the Democratic ticket.
yeah. And then on our side, we're not the party of Mitt Romney anymore. So, we're the party of the Michigan workers. And so we're going to be, we've got them on our side and we'll have the Trump voters. And so it's just interesting how things have shifted where, the Democrat Party is kind of splintering. Those guys are on their side. There's two different lanes over there. And so, yeah, I think the Republicans will be well situated for the next election because our voters don't want us to do this stuff like writing hundreds of millions of dollars to tear down the Renaissance Center as GM leaves Michigan. They want us to do things like fix the roads for everyone and lower the income tax. And, they don't want the old style uniparty type stuff anymore.
No, I would agree. And that's why I'm hoping that someone runs with some executive experience, some business experience, because I think that's what we need. Let's win back everything, right? So we can support the executive that's going to be in the governor's mansion. And then let's just build this place into the powerhouse that we all know and believe it can be. And I get excited about that happening. I really do, because we all love Michigan. We all love to be here. We all want to raise our families here because it is a great state to be at. But my goodness gracious, it can be even greater if we just did some common sense and make this place a business-friendly state. We can go on and on about energy and everything else. But I don't want to take up any more of your time that I already did with your taken away from your family. I appreciate you coming on tonight and being transparent with us. That is one thing I think that people really expect now is this transparency, because we're not getting it from our federal government and even some of our state government. They lie to us, lie right to our face. And the more transparent that we can be, the more we can have conversation. We may not agree on everything, right? Just like I may not agree with some of the stuff that you've done in the past, but holy cow, it's like Ronald Reagan said, if you and I can agree on at least 80% of the issues, we're allies.
Right.
We're on the same team, and we got to get away from this mentality, this polarizing mentality that if you don't agree with me 100% of the time, then I hate you, I attack you, you're garbage, you're a rhino, all this other stuff that people say. No, we're all on the same team here. And we have to keep that unity, because the Democrats want the infighting. They want the infighting of the Republican Party because that's how they win. But if we unite as a party, and we can do that, magic will happen.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at like that proposal to give illegal aliens driver's licenses, it becomes very apparent who's on whose team when we're there. So we all think the line is somewhere else, you know what I mean? And I have these conversations with our 54 members all the time. I mean, when you start really getting into the details of all these issues, I think the line's here, you think it's there. But but when it comes down to many of these core issues, it becomes very clear who shares our values, which is every Republican, and who doesn't, which is every Democrat. And that's why you see when Whitmer got control, how they were able to just steamroll through, because these Democrats, they act like moderates in the election, but when it comes down to it, on a major policy, they all vote lockstep. And so, and I think we're building a Republican Party that is much more principled than it was, but we still see, differences here and there. But yeah, I mean, when we get in there, I'll just give you an example. The restaurant bill I talked about, the paid sick leave bill I talked about, we'll be able to move that stuff on day one with every Republican vote, because our Republicans understand the importance of protecting our tip system. They want to stand up for our restaurant workers, and they understand we need to support our small business.
Amen. It's funny you say that about how they come across as moderates. I mean, Slockton not once answered any questions about boys and girls locker rooms and restrooms and men competing in women's sports. And I remember even when I was starting to call that out way in the beginning several years ago on how the public school boards were allowing this to happen. And people are like, that's not happening. That's not happening in Michigan. That's California. And I'm like, no, I've been watching the school boards. This is happening. And they just stay very quiet about it. They don't answer the questions. And then obviously the corporate media, like the Detroit News, they won't force the issue. They don't ask them the questions. And it is frustrating, but that's why I'm so glad that Elon Musk bought Twitter, now known as X. I think that was one of the significant factors of why President Trump won, because it seems like the people are the media now, and free speech is alive and well over there. And Facebook's starting to get a little better. They're still hot garbage. They're not as bad as commie TikTok, but they're starting to get a little better. But obviously over on X is where freedom of speech is thriving. And it's funny, Speaker-elect, that a lot of the Democrats are now jumping ship off of X because they don't like to be held accountable. And they're going to, what is it called, Sky Blue or Blue Sky? I don't know what the hell it's called. But they don't like to be held accountable. And so they're jumping ship. And and we weren't getting held accountable. We were getting censored for asking questions. That was the problem, right? And now that Elon Musk has bought it, it's been great to watch the comment and the interaction on how this government should work by the people for the people, right?
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate what you do, and because I mean, if you read the Detroit News and the Free Press and all this, they aren't telling you what's really going on at the Capitol. They're trying to distract you. I mean, every time you open it up, they're still talking about the 2020 election and January 6th and all this. They write so many stories about that stuff. And meanwhile, how many stories, have they written over the last 9 months about the issues we're talking about? And if you were to see what's really going on versus what they write about, there's no relationship really. So, that's why what you're doing is so important, because we have to find other ways to get the message out to the people. And these other sources, these corporate media, they're losing support day by day, and rightfully so, because they're so out of touch with the people. And just look at the pandemic. I mean, they were presenting things as fact that our instincts told us were not true. And here you come years later and you realize almost everything they were saying in there was wrong. It's amazing.
It's funny because we're running out of conspiracy theories because they're all been proven true. Like everything that we stood up for way in the beginning, my goodness gracious, for almost 5 years now, has been 100% factual that we were right. Mm-hmm. Why we were right. And it's infuriating because, but it's also, it makes you sleep well at night knowing that you stood for something bigger than self and you were right and you did the right thing for the people and stuff. And so that's what we have to continue. What are you most excited about with President Trump being back in there? What policy are you just like, let's go get him?
I think it's probably that he's finally going to secure our elections. I mean, every day I am in the in the legislature, the Democrats are voting on new ways to change election laws to favor their candidates. And, just the fact that I think with Trump and the Republican Congress, we're going to pass this SAFE Act that's going to allow, require U.S. citizenship to vote and actually proving citizenship to vote. That's going to make such a difference in our elections. I mean, we were there the other day. You mentioned Benson and the Chinese National. The Democrats passed all this legislation in the middle of the night to like double down on these print by demand ballots, which are untraceable ballots, which is what that Chinese National used. You show up to one of these early voting sites, they print the ballot right there. There's no way to track it. Once you put it in the machine, it's gone. Those votes count. And I've gone through a lot of the details of how you would secure the vote there. And with all these Democrats, the only way to do it is at the federal level with the SAFE Act. So I'm proud. I think that there's so many. I mean, you look at the effects that these tariff threats are having. I read a story the other day about how the CEO of Stellantis is saying now, well, we're probably going to have to manufacture cars in the U.S. again.
Yeah.
That's a direct benefit of Trump's policy. And then, I was down at the border a few months ago, and I saw firsthand the importance of Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. And putting that back in place and securing our border is going to be so critical to our country. So, and then I like the mass deportations too. I think it's a great need. No one has ever had the guts to do it. President Trump is going to do it.
Yeah, and Homan's the man that's going to get that done. That's for sure. Logistically, I'm anxious to see how they do it, because it was over 10 to 12 million that we know about. We know there's more, but it's going to be interesting with the logistics and how they get that done. Obviously, they'll probably target the bad people first and then go from there. But the corporate media is going to wait for that situation to run with where there's a child involved or a family or something else just to exploit it. So I've been trying to prep people for that because they're not just going to pick their ball up and go home. They are going to do everything they can to put their heels in the sand and kick and scream about everything President Trump is going to do. But I would agree with you. The SAFE Act, the border, drill, baby, drill, the tariffs. I mean, it's just like we're going to win. Mm-hmm. And we have a leader that's going to demand respect and earn respect at the world stage. And that's what America's about. And so it's going to be great. Peace through strength, right? So I'm excited about that too. Sir, thank you so much for your time tonight, man. I'm sorry to bother you. Tell your wife I'm sorry for taking you away from the family tonight, but thank you for coming on, being transparent, updating us with what's going on, because there's so many questions, there's so many concerns, and I really appreciate you coming in front of the people and just being transparent with us.
Thank you, and I look forward to doing this again soon. All right.
You are invited anytime you want. I got your comms guys contact info, so whenever you guys want to get out and put a message on, you let me know. I'll be more than happy to push that out for you all.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a great day. Man, that was absolutely fantastic. Speaker-elect Hall, thank you again. To his wife, sorry I took him away from your family. A lot of great information on there. Excited that we're going to have a Republican House standing up for all of us, right? But it doesn't stop, okay? Because if they don't, then we got to hold them accountable. But I feel that they're going to have a lot of momentum. We got some great people in there. And like I said, I'm hoping that some of the Democrats there, and the one he spoke of was Karen Winstead, I think it was, just do what's right. Do what's right. Search into your heart, into your soul, and do what's right. Not what's right to your radical left party, but do what's right for what the people voted you in the office to do, to represent your constituents. And the majority of our constituents, I guarantee, would not agree with a lot of the hot garbage if they were told the truth. And that's one thing the Democrat Party is good at, is not telling the truth, and the corporate media cover up the truth. But take a stand. Hey, and if you want to jump ship, I bet we would be more than happy to have you on our side as we make Michigan the powerhouse that we all know and believe it can be. So for my movement out there, Michigan's greatest asset, I'm going to call upon you soon. We have a lot to work to do. I'm going to give you Christmas off, but the day after New Year's, January, coming up here in the next couple weeks, in 2 weeks, I'm going to activate all of you to start building the foundation to win back everything in the state of Michigan. That's how we stop it. They're going to stop the bleeding. They're going to dig their heels in the sand, not allow any of the clown show to continue. However, we need to restore Michigan's glory. Restore the roar like we did with the Lions. Unfortunately, not today because the Lions got beat, but that's okay. They'll come back. But we need to do that as a people. So get some rest over the next couple of weeks, and then it's time to get our butts back in the trenches and fight. God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. Of course, and always, God bless these United States. Till next time. Bye-bye.